Hello everyone and welcome to today's Explainer. Usually we're breaking down these massive white papers or giant research documents, right? But today we're looking at something incredibly concise. We're unpacking the core philosophy from a session titled Performance Metrics. It is a literal masterclass in efficiency, and we're going to extract every single ounce of strategy packed into its few words so we can really understand the modern evolution of tracking business success.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is the absolute entirety of the excerpt we're analyzing today. It's just 11 words. KPIs aligned with growth, AI benchmarks outcomes, performance made visible. Read that again. It reads like a mathematical equation for organizational success, doesn't it? It's dense, it's totally formulaic, and it leaves absolutely zero room for fluff. This isn't just some casual list, it's a direct, uncompromising blueprint for exactly how modern business intelligence is supposed to function.
So part 1. The baseline, performance metrics. Let's look at how this represents a fundamental shift in how an organization actually understands its own forward momentum.
We need to define performance metrics strictly within the context of this framework. Think of it as the foundational system, literally the absolute necessary ground floor that you need for making business outcomes visible. Imagine an e-commerce company trying to track its daily checkout conversion rates. Well, before we can even begin to talk about fancy artificial intelligence or strategic alignment, we have to establish this baseline of measurement. Because if you don't have this foundational system in place right from the start, the rest of that entire 11-word formula just completely collapses.
Which brings us to part 2, the strategy. KPIs aligned with growth, because key performance indicators absolutely cannot just exist in a vacuum.
Now, what's really interesting about this concept is the stark contrast between stagnant goals and true forward momentum. Unaligned KPIs, that just amounts to static tracking. It's kind of like counting website visitors just so you can say you counted them. Who cares, right? But growth-aligned KPIs represent a totally active driving force. It completely shifts the whole dynamic from just passive observation to aggressive strategic action.
Which naturally leads us to ask, why? Why must KPIs strictly align with growth? Well, bridging that gap between just randomly setting a metric and actually driving the outcome you want is everything. If a KPI is aligned with growth, every single data point you collect acts like a stepping stone toward a much larger objective. Without that specific alignment, you're essentially just walking on a treadmill. You're expending all this energy, you're measuring your steps, but you are going absolutely nowhere.
So, moving on to part 3, the technology. AI benchmarks outcomes. Once we have that strategic alignment locked in, we introduce the technological driver.
Let's define what we actually mean by AI benchmarks in this context. We're talking about the technological process of utilizing artificial intelligence to objectively measure and evaluate those growth-aligned outcomes we just talked about. Notice the specific, really heavy weight of the word benchmarks. A benchmark is a strict standard. So by pairing it directly with AI, we're finally moving away from human estimation, away from our own biases, and away from manual calculation. We're stepping into a standard of pure precision and speed that, frankly, only technology can provide.
This brilliantly illustrates a very clear 3-step procedural engine hidden right in the text. Step 1, you align your KPIs with growth. Step 2, you let AI benchmark those exact outcomes against your goals. And Step 3, you achieve visible performance. It's a chain reaction. You can't just skip Step 1 and cross your fingers that Step 2 works, and there's absolutely no way you're reaching Step 3 without nailing the first 2.
Think about how AI benchmarking exponentially scales our ability to measure these outcomes. Traditional human capacity tracking puts a very strict, hard ceiling on what we can process. But AI, it completely shatters that ceiling. The technology doesn't just measure the exact same thing slightly faster, it expands the entire scope of what an organization is even capable of benchmarking. It processes vast amounts of aligned data practically instantly, giving you a highly accurate picture of reality that you just couldn't get otherwise.
Notice the dynamic relationship between the business driver and its intended action here. Every driver demands a highly specific action. For instance, KPIs are the driver, right? So their required action is to be aligned with growth. AI is the driver. Its required action is to benchmark outcomes. Every single component has an active, assigned duty. Absolutely nothing in this blueprint is passive.
And that brings us to our fourth and final part, the human benefit, performance made visible. This is the ultimate triumphant goal of this whole process.
So the crucial point to take away is this. Without those first 2 steps we covered, your actual performance remains totally hidden in the dark. If you have unaligned KPIs and zero benchmarking, you just have hidden performance. You might be out there doing fantastic work, but you can't prove it, and more importantly, you can't optimize it. But the second you apply the formula, meaning aligned KPIs plus AI benchmarking, you suddenly unlock visible performance. It's literally like turning the lights on in a pitch-black room.
The ultimate ideal state here is 100% visible performance. And this level of visibility isn't just some random byproduct or a lucky accident. Not at all. It is the comprehensive, complete result of rigorously aligning those KPIs and heavily leveraging artificial intelligence. When you follow the formula perfectly, the end result is just total, undeniable clarity across your entire organization.
Let's just look at those last three words again. Performance made visible. Think about what visible truly implies here in a real-world business context. It means that the performance inherently exists already, but it's usually just obscured by noise or bad data or frankly just poor strategy. The act of measuring isn't magically creating the performance, it's revealing it. It's stripping away all that guesswork so that the actual reality of the business's success is laid bare for absolutely everyone to see.
Let's see how all this builds together. These concepts form a complete framework resting on three core pillars: growth-aligned KPIs, AI benchmarking, and visible outcomes. They interlock perfectly to create what we call modern business intelligence. The strategy feeds the technology, and the technology delivers the clarity. Take even one of these pillars away, and trust me, the entire structure just falls apart. 3. The elegant simplicity of this framework just cannot be overstated. It is just three interconnected, absolutely non-negotiable requirements for modern metric success. In a business world that is, let's be honest, completely obsessed with endless dashboards, wildly complex methodologies, and hundreds of tiny tracking points, this blueprint cuts right through all that noise. It boils organizational success down to a simple trinity: strategy, technology, and clarity. We can also trace this as a strict chronological journey an organization has to take. Phase 1. Establish those growth KPIs. You have to do the strategic work first. Phase 2. Deploy your AI benchmarks. Let the technology actually process your strategy. And Phase 3, achieve visible performance. This is where you finally reap the rewards of the first two phases. You cannot just jump straight to Phase 3. It takes real discipline to move strictly in order, going from strategy to technology to absolute clarity.
So I want to leave you with a thought to really reflect on today. If AI benchmarks your outcomes right now, how visible is your actual performance? Are your KPIs truly aligned with growth to make that visibility meaningful? Or are you just tracking noise? It's a pretty bold framework, and it completely redefines how we should be looking at success. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I really hope this helps you make your own performance beautifully visible.